Let's say China.
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 China. China. China. China.
There are no storm movers, and you can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska.
You go over to China.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Trump statement, tweeting out insults to Angela Merkel. What's he doing?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host.
Yes. Hello, and welcome. I am James Andrews, and you are listening to So This Happened, the only news you need if you are constantly changing your mind. It's Thursday, the 9th of November, and we're going to jump right in today with Donald Trump and what he thinks about China.
We have a $500 billion deficit, trade deficit with China. We're going to turn it around, and we have the cards. Don't forget, we're like the piggy bank that's being robbed. We have the cards. We have a lot of power with China. When China doesn't want to fix the problem in North Korea, we say, sorry, folks, you got to fix the problem. Because we can't continue to allow China to rape our country, and that's what they're doing. It's the greatest theft in the history of the world.
Okay, so there's Donald Trump last year on the campaign trail talking about how China are the big evil and they're raping the US. Well, he has changed his tone somewhat. Today, in Beijing, Donald Trump blamed, well, have a listen.
Right now, unfortunately, it is a very one-sided and unfair one. But I don't blame China. After all, who can blame a country for being able to take advantage of another country for the benefit of its citizens? I give China great credit. But in actuality, I do blame past administrations for allowing this out-of-control trade deficit to take place and to grow. We have to fix this because it just doesn't work for our great American companies, and it doesn't work for our great American workers. It is just not sustainable.
Whoa, way to change your opinion, Donnie. A year ago, he was blaming China, saying they were the great devil and that they were simply raping America. Now, Barack Obama is to blame. Right, that's the past administration he was talking about. And then he went as far as to say that he gives China great credit for, in fact, raping the United States. You caught that part, right? When he said, it takes a great country to be able to take advantage of another great country. Well done, China. It wasn't your fault. We all would have done it. It's Barack Obama's fault because he was a pussy that I did not grab. And after praising China for being absolutely fabulous, he then went on to talk about his favorite subject in the world. And that is the November election back in 2016.
At home, my administration is supporting American workers and American businesses by eliminating burdensome regulations and lifting restrictions on American energy and all other businesses. Restrictions are being seriously lifted. Our work is already taking hold. The stock market in the United States is at an all-time high, adding already $5.5 trillion in new wealth since the very well-known and now very important November 8th election. Unemployment is at a 17-year low, and so many other great things are happening to the United States, economically and otherwise, frankly, too many to mention.
No, go ahead, Donald. Tell us about all the other wonderful things you've done. No? You have nothing. Okay, fair enough. And it seems that it's not just Hollywood stars that have a hard time keeping it in their pants, so to speak. Today, a woman says that the Republican candidate for the US Senate in Alabama, Mr. Roy Moore, that backwards-thinking arse, sexually assaulted her when she was just 14 and he was 32. The woman alleges that Roy Moore took off the girl's shirt and pants and removed his clothes, touched her over her bra and underpants, and guided her hand to touch him over his underwear. The 70-year-old bigot Moore vehemently denied the allegations, calling them a baseless political attack and the very definition of fake news and intentional defamation. Unfortunately, in the current climate, any such allegations have to be and should be taken very seriously, and a number of both Republicans and Democrats have said that if these allegations turn out to be true, Roy Moore must step aside. And in other sexual predator news, Kevin Spacey's life just keeps getting worse and worse. Today it was announced that he is to be erased completely from Ridley Scott's new film, All the Money in the World. They're going to recast and reshoot the scenes that Kevin Spacey has appeared in. Now, he does appear in the trailer for the film, which came out back in September, but Ridley Scott has decided to cut him from the film entirely and put another actor in his place. The film has already been withdrawn from the American Film Institute's annual festival in LA, which is later this month, and the film, with its new actor, will come out sometime in December. Oh, and there's some breaking news right now. Christopher Plummer is going to be replacing Kevin Spacey in the film, and I can only imagine that the role didn't really have age in mind, because there is quite a difference between the veteran actor, Mr. Plummer, and Kevin Spacey. And we also wait with bated breath to see who will be recast as Roy Moore's replacement. And by now, we all know that the Democrats had a great day on Tuesday. They won a significant number of important elections, but perhaps the most important one was when Bob Marshall from Virginia lost his seat. And in case you don't know who Bob Marshall is, have a listen to some of his frankly wacky views.
Okay? The number of children who were born subsequent to a first abortion who have handicaps has increased dramatically. Why? Because when you abort the firstborn of any, nature takes its vengeance on the subsequent children. In the Old Testament, the firstborn of every being, animal and man, was dedicated to the Lord. There's a special punishment, Christians would suggest, and with the knowledge that they have from faith, it's been verified by a study from the Virginia Commonwealth University. First abortions of the first pregnancy, much more damaging to a woman than latter abortions. None of these are good for anybody, but this organization has had its time. They have failed in their efforts.
Mr. Marshall, a man who truly believes if you have an abortion, you'll be punished with a handicapped children next time you get pregnant. Anyway, that moron lost his seat to, wait for it, the first U.S. openly transgender legislator, Danica Rome. The 32-year-old wiped the floor with Mr. Marshall, who has referred to himself as Virginia's chief homophobe. So I think we can all say goodbye and fuck off, Mr. Marshall. And finally, what does global warming and paganism have in common? Well, if you were to listen to Donald Trump's top pick for White House environmental advisor Kathleen Hartnett-White, they have everything in common. Now, in case you don't know who Mrs. White is, here's a little clip of her discussing the benefits of carbon dioxide in a book that she has authored.
We have so much reason to be optimistic. And I indeed have actually finished a book with my co-author, Steve Moore, that tries to really lay out what are the unbelievable opportunities that the shale revolution and the energy abundance that guarantees. The book has all kinds of examples of the really beneficial impacts of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. Satellites already show a greening of the Earth, in part from the very small amount of carbon dioxide involved with using fossil fuels. We've learned how to control industrial process so that pollution is far, far below what it used to be. In industry, in the tailpipes of our cars, we've developed all kinds of products and materials based on fossil fuels that have made the world a better place, not only in the United States, but across the world.
So there was Miss White, broadcasting from her own planet, wherever that is. Well, yesterday she was in front of the Senate committee and she was being grilled on her beliefs on climate change. Now, Senator Cardin had some choice words for her, and I'm going to play them for you because it's part comedy and it's part tragedy, which we love here. So, again, enjoy.
It seems to me that you don't believe climate change is real.
I am uncertain.
You're uncertain.
No, I'm not. I'm sorry. I jumped ahead of my time. Is of course real.
Human activity affect climate change?
More than likely, but the extent to which I think is very uncertain. And my
Well, would you rely on scientists to give you that answer or not?
No, I've had that question for a very, very long time.
So you have a distinguished background in academics, in humanities and religion,
Yes.
which is fine. It's a wonderful field. You're not a scientist, are you?
No, I'm not a scientist, but in my personal capacity, I have many questions that remain unanswered by current climate policy. I think we indeed need to have more precise explanation of the human role and the natural.
And where do you get that information from?
Wide range of information. The IPCC is a very good source.
What's that?
The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that has been the vehicle for ongoing assessment of climate.
What role does scientists play in this?
Many of them are the authors. There's thousands of them involved in the whole project, but they are of course they're scientists.
Would you support the EPA allowing its scientists to fully participate in all discussions?
I don't see why not. I think science should overwhelmingly guide assessments and all of that, but I don't think they dictate policy results.
Do you stand by your statement that carbon dioxide, greenhouse gases, are not dangerous at all to our environment?
As I would characterize it differently, but I would say that, as I did earlier, it's likely that CO2 emissions from human activity have some influence on the climate, but again, not to the extent. But it does. CO2 in the atmosphere has none of the characteristics of a pollutant that contaminates and fouls and all of that has direct can have direct impact on human health as an atmospheric gas. It's a plant nutrient.
So one last question, Mr. Chairman, and that is, you disagreed with the Supreme Court decision that said that the EPA had a responsibility because of the impact of greenhouse gases on public health. Are you now changing that, or do you still?
No, and it that was styled as the Massachusetts decisions in 2006. That's the Supreme Court's ruling. That's the law of the land.
But you think it was based on the wrong scientific information?
No, I thought it was based on an overly expansive reading of the definition of an air pollutant in the Clean Air Act.
And apparently, to prove that CO2 is in fact not dangerous, Miss White was sucking quite a lot of it before she went in front of Congress today. And I know I said before that paganism and global warming, and you're probably going, well, James, what is that? Mrs. White also said that belief in global warming is the same as belief in paganism. I'm not sure what that means. But anyway, that moron that we just heard, and I think moron is a fair word to use for her, is Donald Trump's top pick for the environmental advisor to the White House. So, well, Ms. White, keep sucking on that CO2. And unfortunately, we are absolutely out of time for today. It was a good conversation as always, and we can continue it on Twitter or Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe and like the podcast on iTunes or Google Play, wherever you're listening to it, and recommend it to a friend and write a nice little review. Anyway, we'll do this all over again tomorrow. So, until then, take care and be excellent. Good night.